Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Space Warfighter Talks. I'm your host, Bill Wolf, the president and founder of the Space Force Association. We are so honored today to have with us Brigadier General Doug Schiess, the commander of the 45th Space Wing. And we're going to talk a lot about what the 45th Space Wing does. You probably hear a lot about the 45th in the news, and we're going to talk all about that. Before we get started, though, I would like to thank our corporate members, Numerica, AGI, Lockheed Martin, BlueStack, and our newest corporate member, Delta Solutions and Strategies. And of course, a special thanks to our founding members, Foresight, Braxton Parsons, and SAIC. And of course, thanks to our individual members for being here. General Schiess, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here and taking time with us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate what the Space Force Association is doing.
Sir, we are here to support you and the rest of the Space Force, so we are honored to have you on the show today. Before we get going, sir, I always like to ask all of our panelists when they come on the show to just provide a little bit of information about your background. Sir, would you just tell the audience kind of what your career looked like and how you ended up as the commander of the 45th Space Wing?
Sure, thanks for the opportunity to do that. So just over 28 years of active duty, was ROTC cadet at UCLA, graduated from Cal Poly Pomona back in 1992, and started out as an ICBM missile operator. As you know, back then, a lot of us started in that area. And then during my time is when space and missile career field merged together. And just had the awesome opportunity to go out to Vandenberg to the 2nd Space Launch Squadron and do some Delta II missions out there on the West Coast. And then spent the most of my time after that in the satellite command and control area with GPS and eventually was the Force Ops Milstar commander. Had the privilege of coming back to launch at Cape Canaveral as an ops group commander in 2012. And then, while I didn't like being away from the family, but had an awesome opportunity to deploy to the CAOC as the director of Space Forces for a year, and got to be all over the Middle East and making sure that we brought space combat effects to the warfighter. So a great assignment. Had the privilege of being the wing commander of the 21st Space Wing at Peterson Air Force Base. Did another touch and go at the Pentagon, and then here I am at the 45th Space Wing. And this is an incredible place to be, and what an incredible tempo we have right now. And so great opportunity.
Yes, sir. All eyes are on the East Coast right now, especially after that successful launch yesterday. You know, for the folks who aren't familiar with the 45th Space Wing and the fact that you lead the team responsible for Eastern Space Range operations, some of our listeners might not be familiar with the size and complexity involved in conducting space launch operations. Can you provide those listeners a verbal tour of the space range and give them a sense of the number of organizations and space professionals required to put space assets on orbit?
No, that's great. Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to talk about the Eastern Range and the 45th Space Wing and the men and women who actually get the business done. And so the Eastern Range is actually 15 million square miles of a lot of the Atlantic Ocean to make sure that we can do our job. And so, one of the main responsibilities of the wing and the wing commander is public safety. And so we want to make sure that when we're launching a rocket, which is, it's a hazardous operation, we want to make sure that we keep the public safe and that nothing goes wrong. And then we also want to make sure, mission assurance, that rocket does what it's supposed to do. It puts that satellite into the orbit that it needs to do. And then on that, we also need to take care of resource protection, because we have several space launch complexes and satellite processing facilities on Cape Canaveral and in the local area there that we need to make sure that we protect to be able to launch the next payload or the next rocket or the next generation. And so, but it is a huge area of responsibility to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe and making sure the rocket gets to where it needs to be. At Cape Canaveral, we have several SLICs, space launch complexes. Obviously, on the national security space side, we have a contract with SpaceX and ULA. SpaceX has 2 SLICs, 39 and 40, and then ULA has 2 as well. One for Delta IV and one for Alice 5. SpaceX launches Falcon 9 off of both of those. recent in my history, we also have a landing zone now because we can land the SpaceX the first stage booster back on land. But we also have several other entities. Blue Origin is building up their space launch complex on Cape Canaveral. And we have some other smaller vehicles as well, Relativity and others that are coming on to the Eastern Range. We like to say we have a great mission partner over at Kennedy Space Center at NASA. And so we share, two countries with open border between the two there so that we can get our work done. But we share both of those, all those facilities to be able to get the mission done. But to get the mission done, we also have to have a bunch of radar, telemetry. We have to have surveillance. We have to make sure that there's no boats out in the area or aircraft in the area when we're doing missions. Currently with Atlas and Delta, we have to have the ability to command destruct those vehicles if for something were to go wrong. SpaceX on the Falcon 9 and every other new vehicle that we eventually get will have an autonomous flight safety system that uses onboard processing, GPS, other things to be able to do that itself, which gives us greater, more flexibility to be able to do more operations. And so we have all up and down the Cape, a bunch of instrumentation. Weather instrumentation is a huge part of what we do. We're probably the most instrumentated area for weather, but incredible. When you look at Florida, it's just the perfect place to launch a majority of our rockets. Our brothers and sisters out of Vandenberg, they are the premier polar launch and for ICBM and missile defense testing. But for here, with the way the geography of Florida works, we can get to our highly elliptical orbits. We can definitely get out to our geosynchronous orbits. And then we can also do a partner with our Navy brethren and sisters for testing of their submarine launched ballistic missiles. We have a facility on Ascension Island that we work with the UK with that also has instrumentation to be able to support those submarine launches. And so a pretty big area, but very dynamic. There's something going on, processing a rocket, processing a satellite, just about every day. I mean, more than that, every hour. So incredible place. It's great to be here.
Tremendous scope of responsibility, to say the least, General. And I'm sure folks are curious, what does a day in the life of? Could you walk us through yesterday's events and just kind of give us an overview of how that looked and all the decisions that had to be made? And then ultimately, how you conduct launch operations to say, yeah, go ahead and launch. Could you kind of walk us through a day in the life of?
Sure, yeah. So I'm actually going to start a little bit farther than a day.
Okay.
Because I think sometimes when we're talking about this, people think of just the day of launch.
Right.
But it is a process to make sure that we have the rocket ready to go, which starts all the way from the production and then getting through. And so in this case, which being a national security payload, we have engineers and actually missile technicians that used to work out in the missile fields that provide what we call mission assurance for Space and Missile Systems Center because they're not here all the time. And so we do this on their behalf of mission assurance. They're watching the contractors. In the case of yesterday, that's SpaceX to, do a quality assurance. Are they doing everything that they said they would do within the contract? Is everything looking right for launch? And we have a great relationship to be able to talk back and forth with them and make sure that we're doing everything properly. So it starts all the way with getting the first stage booster here, getting the second stage, processing them, putting them together, eventually taking those out to the pad. And with a Falcon 9, a lot of times we'll do what we call a static fire, which is taking it down to essentially T0 and making sure everything works. And then we'll go a couple days later. So yesterday, the team, the what we call the engineers, they were on console, 7-8 hours before launch, preparing everything to get to that. The range picks up the count at about 5 hours out and make sure we start looking at surveillance. We've got to make sure that, that's a great corridor for people from northern of the East Coast to come down to the south part of the East Coast. We have to make sure those airplanes aren't going to come right through when we're doing a launch. Obviously, a lot of shipping in that area too. So they start looking at the surveillance. We start monitoring the weather, making sure that the weather is ready to go. And then I like to say, actually, it's pretty, our security forces squadron, it's like they do an air show every time we do a launch because they've got to block off the areas. Obviously, Cape Canaveral and Kennedy Space Center is a restricted area, but we still have a lot of people we have to block off for those hazardous areas. And we start more closer in and we move out to do that. So they're continually working that. We have our explosive folks, our EOD folks on call in case there's a problem. we actually have bioengineer folks from our medical group and our civil engineers that are, in case there's a disaster that we then have to shelter people in place and start looking where toxics are going. All of that is ongoing. Our safety folks are taking a look to make sure that all of our risk factors are good to go. And then we start doing the countdown, and we're into the countdown to make sure we're going towards T0, monitoring the satellite, monitoring the rocket, doing that with our mission partners at SpaceX, and in this case, SMC, to make sure everything's good to go. Weather is always, hey, is weather going to be good? This is the lightning capital of the United States. And so making sure lightning and rockets don't go well together. And so we're making sure. And so it is, right down to, T0, making sure. And then at T0, we're monitoring the rocket to make sure that it is continuing safely onto its way. And in this case, with a booster, it starts coming back. And so we got to monitor that. It's a little bit easier with the ones that come back on to a barge. But obviously with ones coming back to the landing zone, we have to make sure that area is also safe for them to come down. So it's an all-day experience, and then, several hours. And then in this case, we had to wait till we had good spacecraft separation and everything was going well. So our engineers are staying on console until that happens with our SMC partners and SpaceX. So hopefully that gives you kind of a day in the life. And sometimes we're doing those one right after the other. And so it's never stops.
Again, tremendous responsibility, and appreciate you doing that job. And of course, the entire team's work. Seems like some of the best footage you get from the launch is from the search and rescue helicopter.
Sometimes it is. Yeah. Although SpaceX and I'm sure that, ULA has this too. And I'm sure the new rockets, Blue Origin and Vulcan, will have that. There's some incredible capabilities that back when I was a youngin' didn't have on the rocket itself to be able to see some of that. But you're right. Flying on a helicopter, watching a rocket take off is a pretty cool adventure.
Absolutely. Sir, I'd like to switch gears just for a little bit. And for the folks in the audience, I just want to let you know that there is a Q&A panel, and feel free to ask questions for General Schiess, and we will get to those throughout the conversation. Sure, COVID-19 pandemic, it's a huge burden, I think, on everyone right now, obviously, and it's added complexity to your team's mission. In March, the 45th launched the AEHF-6 satellite, the first under COVID-19 restrictions on your daily business practices. What did the team learn from that experience, and how are they applying those lessons now to existing, current launches?
No, that's a great question. And the team has done incredible here. When you think through that, we yesterday launched our 24th rocket of the year. 2019, we launched 20. 2018 we launched 24, so we're into November, beginning of November. We've already launched 24, and we did that during a global pandemic. And so I don't know that if you had talked to me in April, I would have said that we would have kept. I knew that we were going to try to keep the schedule, but I didn't know that we would get there. And so just like every part of our life, we've learned as we've gone forward. And so back in March, I was on an airplane coming back from a Space Force road show when we got hey, everybody stop traveling and all do that. And it was pretty close right before this advanced CHF satellite. And so just sat down with the folks and said, hey, how can we continue to do our job? One of the great things is over the years, back when I was a captain doing this, and even when I was a colonel group commander, we had a lot more people in the op centers than we do now because of automating stuff and doing things like that. And so that allowed us to spread out within the op center. It's kind of funny. I think about it now, even though we had that room, we were all still really close together, and we had this huge, mission control rooms. And so we were able to spread out within the room. Even in where I sit, we were all close together. We spread out. We started taking temperature checks, before you came into the ops center, wiping everything down, and wearing masks. I mean, I'd never worn a mask before, and then you got to figure out, hey, where does my headset go with my mask? And so the team just did an incredible ability. We lowered the number of people down to the minimum, in that, which at first affected a little bit of training because, a lot of our training is on the job. And so we kind of said, hey, at first we're not going to do that, but then we slowly brought that back, still safely distanced from each other. autonomous flight safety systems help us out drastically because we can take all that mission flight control, the guys that are monitoring and would send the command destruct, those don't have to be there. So that helps us out as well. But even in the processing, we had to figure out, what is the right processing? Maybe I can have cameras to watch mission assurance activities. And so I can be in a control room and watch instead of being on there. We work through that to, hey, some things, no, I actually need to be, clean rooms, different things. I need to be there to see, but then we can wear face coverings. And so it's been a continual process that we've gone through. One of the things we did too, that we hadn't done in the past, because we didn't have to, is be more specific in our, you're on this crew, you're on the GPS crew. In the past, we would have been, hey, you're on the GPS crew, and then maybe GPS leapfrogs to somewhere else. Oh, well, you can do this other mission. Nope, we're keeping that crew together so that if anybody gets sick on that crew, we can take another crew and replace them. Where we're not like, oh my gosh, that person has been exposed to everybody on the crew. And so it's been a learning process, and I've been so proud of the team to be able to do that. Our public health, the folks that are this is their war, and so they're in there helping us, making sure we're making wise decisions and doing that. So it's been really interesting, but we've kept the pace going.
Well done, sir. I know it's been really difficult. You talk about crew competency and crew formation, very important. Obviously, crew practices. In June, during the Falcon 9 launch of Starlink L8, the 45th Weather Team was all female. Major Emily Graves, Captain Nancy Zimmerman, A1C Hannah McCulhey, Jessica Williams, Arlena Moses, and Melody Lovin demonstrated excellence during that mission. Space Force clearly values diversity so that it can draw from the largest possible talent pool. Are there other examples from the 45th which you can highlight to inspire young people to pursue a future in the Space Force? Yeah,
that's a great question. No, that's pretty cool. And it almost happened by accident. I'm not, they came to me and they said, hey, sir, it looks like our crew for this mission is all female weather officers. And so we were like, oh, okay, we gotta showcase this. The interesting part is we probably could have had an all range crew, but we would have broke those COVID crew, requirements, because my vice commander, Colonel Brandy Walton, is awesome. And she could have been on the LDA. We could have done that. But I think the great story is that we didn't do that. We didn't manufacture this. This was just, these are the right people for this mission. And they just happen to be females. And so incredible story. So proud to see that happen. We do have a lot of other things that we're doing. One of the things that we're working on is we actually started this right before COVID and then kind of had to pull out. So, we have this thing on base called Starbase, which is a DoD program that brings in 5th graders to learn STEM for a week. And they focus on lower income areas for schools to bring them in. And then our folks get to participate. There's fully certified teachers that have the curriculum and work with that. But then they bring in our engineers and others, our weather folks, even our EOD that have the robots that go out to, and they bring those folks in and get them excited about STEM and excited about space. I mean, you live in Florida, come over here. We'll show you some great things about how to do the mission. And so we continue to do things like that. We're always looking for opportunities to get out. COVID is obviously stop with that into our schools to, want to make sure that we're recruiting from across the whole spectrum of America to be able to be a part of the Space Force. So we're continuing to do that, continuing to look for ways to continue to have a diverse workforce here.
Great. Thank you, sir. What a great initiative. The stand-up of the Space Operations Command just happened a couple weeks ago. Could you talk a little bit about that organizational structure and how the 45th Space Wing now fits into that? Yeah, sure. So obviously, as you've heard the leaders talk in the past, we've compressed some of the other levels of organization, and so so when you think of the Air Force of MAGCOM, Numbered Air Force Wing Group, essentially across most of the organizations, it's now Field Command. Think
MAGCOM / numbered Air Force, taking all those responsibilities to deltas, and then, squadrons. And so the 45th Space Wing will become a delta in the future. One of the interesting parts about space launch compared to others is there, as I think I've talked to you about, the CE folks, the medical folks, the security forces folks, all on launch day being a part of the team. And so our delta will still have those installation parts in there, because it's just too hard to break. You can't have a CE squadron that does CE stuff on the base and then a CE squadron that does launch. And so the delta here will have both responsibilities, but primarily focused on launch and being able to do that. Right now, we currently report to Lieutenant General Whiting and the Space Operations Command. But the 2 launch wings will become deltas and will report to Space Systems Command in the near future when Space Systems Command stands up. And so, but we will do the same here. We'll have squadron commanders that report to a delta commander, and it'll we're really trying to flatten that structure so that we can be as agile and responsive as possible.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Speaking of agility, obviously you've partnered with SpaceX for Falcon 9 launches. Elon Musk has been a pioneer changing the space launch business. What is the 45th team learning from that partnership with SpaceX, and what can you take forward in terms of being more agile in our space launch capabilities?
Yeah, so a great relationship with all of our mission partners here, but SpaceX, I think the biggest thing is autonomous flight safety system. They were the first to really go to that. And I might have that wrong. There may be some other providers out there that we're looking at, but they're the first that are doing it on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, I was the ops group commander when we started talking about that, and the safety folks were like, "That's never happening," and here we are, and it's obviously done an incredible job, and it shrinks the amount of time between launches. We are really, General Raymond, as the Chief of Space Operations, is really pushing us to launch when we need to launch. And so when the rocket and the payload need to go, we need to be ready to go. We need to be not the person that's, the range needs to be not holding up the situation. And so when you had a bunch of command destruct information and encryption and different things, it made it a lot harder to change the range over. The range is also, the infrastructure a little older. We need to get some more network bandwidth and other things on that. We're working through that. Range of the Future under General Raymond's leadership is, we're pushing through that. But SpaceX autonomous flight safety. The other thing is, they're always pushing the envelope, and they want to do everything as safe and as complying with mission assurance. But they want to, why can't I do this today? Why can't I, and we had to get away from the, I'm just going to tell you no, because we're the only game in town, to, hey, we need to work with you. And one of the things we've seen, and SpaceX forced us to do this, when I say forced us, because they brought so many more launches to the range.
Right.
But they also, the other providers had to come along. Is when I was here as a ops group commander, we worked one mission at a time from scheduling. And so, hey, this launch is happening. And then, I talked to you about all the things that happened before that. So we lay the schedule out before, and if anywhere in here, the schedule conflicts with somebody else's, oh no, then we got to start over because we can't do that. And essentially by the pushing of, hey, we need to have this launch rate, we said, well, how comes we can't work together? And so we call it the hub. They all get together. And so say they want to do here, I'm going to launch on this date. And then they back up what that means. And then they're in conflict with maybe a spacecraft transport for one of the other launches coming up. Well, what if you pushed yours a day to the left or a day to the right? We could still get everything done and you still make your date, but it wasn't exactly the timeline that you thought, but both launch providers get to launch golden. That's good for everybody. And so that has been a huge thing. I'll tell you, we for a long time did that with like magnets and where on the board, and hey, I'm drawing, and then someone accidentally erases the where we are. We had to get a software system to be able to do that. So then everybody can take a look and say, hey, if I pop my launch in here and I back it up, oh, it looks like I'm pretty good. Oh, maybe if I move here. And so just having the launch providers work together, the example I give is, we've had NRO payloads. We've done a polar launch from here. We've worked all those out to be able to get the mission done for, in the case, sometimes a commercial entity, but in a lot of cases, make sure that we get national security payloads onto orbit for the warfighters. So we're pushing to make sure that we can do it while still being as safe as possible, and making sure that the rockets get off and safely put their payloads into orbit.
Thank you for that, sir. We do have a question from the audience. Can you please address the range of the future to include the merging Cape Canaveral facility with NASA's Kennedy Space Center under a single spaceport authority?
Yeah, so I think a little bit of that has gotten convoluted a little bit. So there's nothing on the horizon to merge Cape Canaveral Air Force Station or Kennedy Space Center into one organization. What the National Spaceport talk about is, much like airports, and so who runs those, who decides when someone takes off and when land. You talk about you can't have every airplane take off at the same time, and you can't have them all land at the same time. You got to have a sequencing, and so as there becomes more spaceports across, we could have a spaceport right up the coast here. Maybe Jacksonville decides that they want to have a commercial spaceport. Well, then how do we work with them to make sure that we're not, affecting their ability to do that? So that national spaceport architecture that is really a white paper that Major General Burt and her role as the Spock 3-6 has been working with now Lieutenant General Saltzman and others to get that, along with our FAA partners and others. But we're not there yet. But I think somehow that looked into merging the KSC and Cape Canaveral, and there's nothing on that right now. And so it's more the structure above that to make sure as more spaceports come open that we can all work together within the same framework.
Great, thank you, sir. I suspect it's nice having a friendly face at the FAA and Brigadier General retired Wayne Monteith helping that out quite a bit.
Yeah, no, it's been a great relationship working with General Monteith and his role as an administrator up there, because he knows the business and he knows what's going. He's also hired some other folks that have been a part of the business, and so great working with him. And we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to maximize launch opportunities for payloads, both commercial and national security space.
Great, thank you, sir. The 45th claims to set the pace for space. I say claims, you really are setting the pace for space. Most visions for the future of the U.S. military space include concepts for more frequent space launches and a more responsive space launch enterprise to respond to future threats to U.S. and allied space capabilities. What is the 45th doing today to make that vision a reality? Yeah,
so you talked about General Monteith, and so he just had a great slogan or a vision of drive to 48. And so that was hey, how can we do 48 missions within a year? And I took that on, and we were continuing on, based on the work that he'd already done. And then we realized we had demonstrated drive to 48 several times. We had 2 Augusts ago, we did 2 launches within 34 hours. Hadn't been done in 30 years, that too close. In December of that year, we launched 2 within a week, but we were ready to launch 2 within 5 hours. But just because the things didn't happen. And so we said, hey, did we shoot a little low with drive to 48? Maybe we need to launch whenever we need to launch. And so that's set the pace for space. And we never want to be the entity that's causing something not to be able to do that. And so we're working with our launch providers to find out what we could do to be able to provide them with more agility. Range of the future, really, as we get to autonomous flight safety systems, we can recapitalize some of the radars and telemetry that we don't need anymore to be able to do the mission flight control part of that. And we can build maybe a better network so that plug and play, you're a small company and you want to launch off of a multi-use launch pad, but you don't have all of the things that you need. Well, hey, you can, or maybe you want to bring your own stuff. And so you plug into the network for being able to do that. And so that's really where we're working on that. SMC has that, and we're working in concert with them to be able to provide that infrastructure, not only here at the Eastern Range, but also at the Western Range. And so we're working through trying to be as reliable and reusable. I mean, if there's things, one of the things that we did is we have these frequency control bands. So say you're moving a satellite that, maybe let's talk about an CHF satellite, that you want to make sure there's no stray frequencies that harm some part of that satellite as you're transporting it from its satellite processing facility to the pad. So we had these vans that would drive along and would listen for, electromagnetic interference. And then it could be, somebody's over here just doing something that they didn't know that there was something happening, or they weren't paying attention, and we could stop the transport. Hey, go figure that out, turn that off. Well, we also realized those could be telemetry vans as well. And so maybe I don't need a bunch of telemetry all over. I just need some vans that, hey, I'm launching a SpaceX today. Let's get the vans in the right location to be able to, perform that mission for them. And tomorrow I'm launching an Atlas V. And so then I can do those. So we're working through that, what that architecture looks like, but trying to make sure that we can, we can be fast, we can be agile, and still get our mission done safely, and mission assurance to get the payload to the right orbit at the right time.
Sure, thank you for that. You bring up a good point about partnerships, and we spoke about industry. What do you, as a commander, look for in partnerships in industry?
Yeah, so I think the best thing is working together with us. I'll be honest, when I was the ops group commander here, I think it was more of a little bit of an adversarial, because we were I think we used the word no more than yes. And we've changed that atmosphere. I mean, it is a totally different atmosphere from 2014 when I left till now. And that's, the folks, I'll put in there General Cotton, General Armagno, General Monteith, that changed that atmosphere so that we could get to the point where we're really working with them, and not hey, we're the range, we'll tell you when you can launch. But no, we're really working to be able to launch whenever they need to launch. The best thing is if they can be as transparent with us about when they're actually going to launch. And I realize there's some financials in that of when do I say that, hey, I'm not going to be able to launch at this time, and their shareholders might be watching that. But if they could be as transparent with us that, hey, I'm actually not going to launch on this day because I'm not going to make it, then that allows us to do other things that day that then maybe helps somebody else out. And I think we're getting there. I think we're, this hub that I talked about where, we're working every change to a mission. I mean, I think I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but so we've launched 24 times this year. I think we've had over 100 what we call ILCs, initial launch commitments. So we've said 100 times we're going to launch, but we've only launched 24. And so could be not a lot of those were actually going into the count and not launching. It was we set up a date and then we had to change it, and that's fine. But the more we can work together so that we have less of those and actually launch dates, the better. So I think partnership is working together, and I think that has really changed in the last 4 or 5 years in the launch business, and it's really great to see how we can all work together to get the nation's business done.
Great, thank you, sir. We talk about industry. What about our international partners? Is there a formal relationship in place to talk to our international partners about providing capabilities that we aren't able to, or to help our existing capabilities?
Yeah, so that's really probably a better question for SMC and the new SSC. But I will tell you, we do that all the time with the polar launch SpaceX. That was an Argentinian satellite. And so we have folks, that come on. We're launching a Japanese astronaut here this weekend or next weekend, as a part of the International Space Station crew. And so we are continually working with international partners because maybe it's their satellite and it's launching on one of, a ULA or a SpaceX rocket. And so we're working with those. But I'm sure that, SpaceX or SMC, is working with other partners because maybe it makes sense to have them launch something instead of us, or vice versa. And so, but that's probably a better question for them. But regardless, we do work with our international partners to help everybody get the mission done.
Thank you, sir. The new Space Force Capstone document provides the first published doctrine for the Space Force. It's visionary in a lot of ways. For example, the document introduces the Space Mobility and Logistics mission. How do you conceive of implementing the doctrine at the 45th to enable this new mission?
Yeah, no, so that's a good question. And what a great document, the Space Power document. And here we go. Here's my desk right here. Got it right here, ready to go. And so, that's a tough nut to crack at first. But what I think it really comes down to is the same things that we've already talked about is setting the pace for space in being able to launch when someone needs to launch. And if, the commander of United States Space Command, General Dickinson, goes to the Space Force and says, hey, I need some satellites ready to go, then we got to work with our mission partners to be able to, hey, what would it take to put that satellite on your rocket right now and bump something else? And so that's a lot of work that has to happen. But all the work that we're doing to be able to launch when we need to launch is going to help that when we get to that point. And so, being able to make changes, on the range. Hey, we're not launching that one today. We're launching this other one. And that gets back to that network and being able to do that much faster. But I think that'll be a growing part of the doctrine, and the 45th and the 30th and Space System Command will be a big part of where we go in that in the future.
Yes, sir. What about, and I don't know if I've spoken to you about this before, but it's just a concept. What about in the joint all-domain command and control discussions that are ongoing right now at the Department of Defense level? Is there an opportunity for the Space Force to leverage other domains to provide space-based capabilities, i.e. air-launched space-based capabilities or sea-launched space-based capabilities? Are those topics being discussed today?
Yeah, I think they are. The 45th and the 30th has the ability on Northrop Grumman's Pegasus to do an air launched satellite mission, and so we did that here over a year ago. Pretty cool mission for NASA. Not as cool for the folks in the Space Coast because it's out over the ocean, so they can't see it. But a good capability, much smaller satellite, and the ability to do that. But there's other things that could happen with that. I'm not tracking anything that we're doing. I do see Sierra Nevada and others that maybe have air launch, takeoff kind of things that they could use our runways here at Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral for those missions, and then be a part of the Eastern Range to make sure they're going. But that probably is some things to go in the future. We do have sea launch. It's just it's a submarine ballistic missile, not a satellite, but we do that on about a yearly basis to do the test for the nuclear deterrence. So
great, thank you, sir. The U.S. military has 2 space ranges. Will that be enough to provide a resilient space launch capability for the nation when faced with a peer adversary possessing significant counter space capabilities?
Yeah, so that's a great question. There's obviously other spaceports popping up. There's Alaska. We've got Wallops. We've got others. I really believe we have some more capacity here at the Eastern Range, and I know that my good friend Tony Mastelier out at 30th Space Wing has some capacity there, and so I think we're good for the foreseeable future. But it's always something that we need to look at. I think an example is our polar launch from here that we did. We're not the premier location to launch polar from, but SpaceX wanted to do that because of their processing time frame. With what they had going on here, and they do a lot of the same folks that work here work out there, and so by keeping it here on the East Coast allowed us to do it. And the safety experts were able to work through a dogleg maneuver that kept the public safe. But it's not like that meant that, hey, we don't need Vandenberg anymore. But it gave us a great alternative if for some reason, there was a big fire that happened out of Vandenberg that caused them not to be able to do something. We still need the rocket here. We still need the payload here. We need all that to happen. But I think between the 2 ranges right now, we're looking pretty good. But who knows what the future holds and how many launches will go. But I think with autonomous flight safety system and reusable rockets, we're going to get to where, we're going to be launching pretty darn quick here on a regular basis. I already feel like we are, but we're going to do even more. So.
Yes, sir. I've got a question here from the audience, and it's referencing Lieutenant General retired Quas says it costs commercial about $13 million per launch. And this is the reason for SpaceX move to establish their own spaceport in Boca Chica. Does Space Force charge that much? And do you think the space range of the future will change this paradigm? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I can't get into exactly how much each rocket counts. I do tell you that we painstakingly go over each of those values. If they have some other capabilities that they want to launch from somewhere else, I can't get into that, whether that's what they're doing. But we have a great partnership with them here. This is the premier place to launch rockets from. And quite frankly, we work together well. We take care of their roads and their commodes, to say, we make sure that's all ready for them, and they have to take care of their pad and that they lease from us, and they don't pay anything for that lease. They pay to use our launch capabilities when it's that time. And so I think it's a good opportunity. It allows us to have the least amount of people to do mission assurance too. So let's say they just started launching everywhere. We would either have to not do mission assurance, we have to do it remotely, or we wouldn't be able to have the number of people to be able to make sure that we have that quality assurance to make sure that payload is actually going to get onto orbit. And so, but no, it's obviously their business model, but I think the best place to launch right now is from the Eastern Range and followed closely by the Western Range. And so we'll keep doing what we do here.
Understand, sir. Any news about your future, what your future holds?
Hey, that's a great question. Yeah. So they're kicking me out. I got to go find a new job. No. So I'm headed off to be at headquarters Space Operations Command at Peterson Air Force Base to be the director of space and cyber operations there. And so Major General Burt's taken off to be the commander of SFA. And so I'll head out to Colorado Springs. Brigadier General Stephen Purdy will be coming in to be the next commander of the 45th Space Wing. And I'll tell you what, this has been an honor of a lifetime to be the commander here, to launch these rockets, to work with just incredible people. The men and women of the 45th Space Wing and Team Patrick Cape and the Space Coast community are just incredible. And a lot of just incredible things happened during the last 2 years. And so looking forward to the next opportunity, but Debbie and I will definitely miss Patrick Air Force Base and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station.
So I guarantee they're going to miss you as well. Veterans Day is coming up. Any big plans for Veterans Day?
You never know when a rocket might just launch on Veterans Day. Right now, nothing. We're really focused on the 14th of November, where the first crew mission to the ISS. Great crew, one Japanese astronaut. Really cool thing is Colonel Hopkins, the commander, is going to go up to the International Space Station, and then I think the Chief of Space Operations is going to swear him into the Space Force while he's actually in space. And so we look forward to a successful launch for him. Veterans Day, we're doing the things to remember that. But with COVID, we have scaled back on those large activities. So.
Yes, sir. Understand. Anything the SFA can do for you in your current role and in your future role? Anything we can do to help out?
Hey, well, I just want to say thanks for what you're doing to get the information out to folks. We interact with people all the time. They're like, I don't know what Space Force is, and so telling the story and doing that is really, really important. And I appreciate what you guys are doing to be able to do that. And thanks for allowing us to do this today to showcase the men and women of the 45th Space Wing. But appreciate all your efforts to get the story out that this is important. This is important stuff. We've been talking about this for a long time. And it's not the TV show, the Netflix TV show. It's the real thing, and it's what we need to do to make sure that we're protecting our nation.
Yes, sir. And it's serious business. Any closing comments, sir?
Hey, well, I just want to say I'm super proud of the men and women of the 45th Space Wing and what they've done for many years, but over the last 2 years while I've been here, and just an incredible pace that they've been keeping up. And they did all that with a global pandemic. I mean, the fact that we launched the first astronauts from U.S. soil while a global pandemic was going on, while the President of the United States and the Vice President were here watching, the team just did incredible. And they just keep continuing to knock it out of the park. And I'm just glad that they allow me to take the field every once in a while with them and be a part of the team. So, but thanks for today. And thanks for allowing me to do this.
Really appreciate your time today, sir. Thanks for your leadership, and have a great Space Force Day. Semper Supra.
Semper Supra.
All right. Bye now.